Welcome to Turtle Island Voices, originating in the Treaty 8 territory of British Columbia, created by Kelly Smith and hosted by Tansy Friendship Center Society. We asked 6 people to share their journey. We heard different voices, similar views, and saw experiences through a different lens.
Welcome Gerald Auger. He's a national and native role model. He's a spiritual leader. He's an Indigenous relations consultant. He's an entrepreneur and a storyteller. And his list of credits are amazing and numerous and inspiring within film and all the things that he's done. And I know he'll get into that in more depth. But there's also his strong connection to the land. And Gerald, I thank you very much for being part of us and allowing us to host you, my friend.
Nahaw istabita ho mamahtawen og siman tunigan minanas kumaw. Guaso mo ni hiyo pics kwano miwa miuk siman to gagi. Tagi mi do ni hiyo pics ko wa boka kinigan kanigan stay no gawi map skuchigian anong guys ni skill patch muktian akakyo gisto kana skum nawa wa kumagan anong kam tatami mi wa chan mo muta chamuan. So I thank Creator first and foremost for allowing me to be here and share this time with you. And I spoke in my Woodland Cree language because I was told by my ancestors and the elders to always honor that part of my human being when I am to address my fellow human being. And I honor each and any one of you for listening. And for those of you that will be listening to this podcast, I honor each and every one of you for today. Hi.
So we thank you very much. And so I know that Kelly's the lead here, so maybe I'll get Kelly to ask the first question.
Sure. Let's jump right in here. So why have you agreed to be interviewed, Gerald?
When my brother reached out to me and said if I would be interested in sharing a little bit about my journey and about life and where I'm at in life. When I left the world that I come to know in 2009 after working with Hollywood for 20 some years and traveling the world and doing what I was doing and never fully doing the work on myself as a product of intergenerational impact from the emotional, the mental, the physical, the sexual abuse I experienced as a child. I was told by the ancestors and the elders to walk away from that world and to go heal from that. So I left the life I had known in 2009 and went back to my Woodland Cree territory and spent the next 6 years looking at myself emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually to heal from the unresolved childhood trauma I had experienced. And when I was done 6 years later, I was given my marching orders by the one that I've come to know as my creator, my higher power, the elders and the ancestors. Kapikspista muna ni utaw che wim stokta man dans ni wapskui si bigskui he se wasko in way se mas nai he ego asewan kapikspista mo ya we yarwano tirai sino they had said. The ancestors said you will now be a bridge for us because you walk in that Western world. You understand their language. You understand how they walk and how they operate and how they write. And you will now become our bridge because the world is going to lose its way, has lost its way. And we will ask of you to speak on our behalf, to bring that knowledge, bring that understanding to a world that has lost its way. So when these opportunities such as this one, my brother came to me and asked me if I would be willing to do this, I knew right away that, okay, this is part of what I'm told to do. To be that bridge. Sometimes life will get in the way when we're asked to do things. And I've come to understand in this journey that sometimes when things go sideways, it will go sideways for a reason, or it'll make the people involved with whatever is to happen where their faith is and really to understand where their priorities are in life and what it is they're truly willing to do and sacrifice and make time for. Because the people today I've learned is they will say they live in the moment as they run out the door looking at the clock or the calendar on the wall. And that's what the elders had said to me, and that you have to be very mindful and recognize I have to learn to recognize the Creator's presence, to do something about it to earn Creator's grace. So opportunities come, which I'm grateful for. But I was always also told come 2022 to pick and choose my battles, to be a part of those who are sincere and genuine in bringing that balance to a world that's living in chaos. So when things go sideways, it's okay, I know you're up to something, so it'll play itself out as it's supposed to. And that because Creator's will is, you can never force Creator's will. You cannot ever try and manipulate Creator's will. I've got to understand you have to surrender all natural resistance to the natural flow of life and let it be. And that's a part of it, right? So that's why I chose to do this. It's not that I didn't choose, I was told back in 2016, this is what you are to do. And that it won't be easy. That's what the old people say, though. When the good things in life you want don't come easy.
I really appreciate the part where you said that when things are meant to be, they're meant to be, because as podcasts, we've run into a few scheduling problems, and I even doubted myself that I'm doing the right thing here. And so when you say that this is really meant to be, it makes me feel it's really meant to be too. And the being genuine part really hits home for me, because that's what this podcast is about. We want to speak the truth. We want to speak the things that other people aren't speaking. So thank you for that. Ivan, I'm going to let you take the next question because I need to catch my breath.
And it's also about healing and awareness too, as well, and being real and being truthful to who we are as people. So, Gerald, I know that you're one heck of a role model. And so I'm going to ask you two questions in one. What does awareness look like to you? And were you always proud to be Indigenous?
Mm-hmm. That word Indigenous that's more of a colonial term. And I've come to understand that the 6 years, I consider myself a four-directional human being.
Good.
In understanding how truly powerful it is to be a four-directional human being. And yes, I have always been proud of who I am, because my late grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side had always tried to instill the teachings in me, even when I was going through the trauma I was as a young man, as a young boy. But I always knew deep down at the core that they were there for a reason. They were there to teach me what I needed to know growing up. And that, yes, I've always been proud of who I am, of my ancestry, of my lineage, of where I come from as a four-directional. And why healing is so important for the world to understand is because we have lost connection with our higher power, whomever your higher power may be. If it's Creator, if it's God, it's Buddha, Allah, Jesus, whoever your higher power is. People have forgotten that. And that's a part of why the world is where it's at today. The elders had said, and the ancestors had said, is that because we have lost our way. We have lost the connection of truly understanding what it is to walk this physical world. We have forgotten about our fellow human being. Mm-hmm. And that's the beautiful thing about where the world is now. When this pandemic happened, the elders, I remember asking, sitting in ceremony, sitting in prayer and asking the higher power, and I know what is going on with this pandemic. Why is it happening? What's really behind it? And the answer from Spirit came in through the dreamscape, telling me that the four races of the human family, from our yellow brothers and sisters, our black brothers and sisters, our white brothers and sisters, and us as the four-directional, the red people, have lost that connection and have lost that connection to our fellow human being. And that this pandemic, using the element of air to make the human family understand the little things that we've forgotten, the little things that we take for granted, visiting family, sitting with our elders, hugging our children, visiting. And that's what this whole pandemic, this is the awakening the ancestors have talked about I was told about these prophecies years ago, and that now they're all playing themselves out. My late grandmother on my dad's side, she had told me on her deathbed that what daw she said to me that in the future the woman is going to rise. And I understand with her in her good times and then her bad times. And only until she finds her rightful place in the circle of life is the only way life will correct itself. And that's what I do now in the work that I do. Not just with Hollywood that I call, or even in corporate, the grassroots level, the community level. That's the beautiful thing, that our people are now slowly returning to that sacred fire and understanding what that really means when we understand our language, our culture, and our spirituality. So our people have become so lost, they don't really understand the difference between culture and spirituality. And you can't have culture and spirituality without understanding the language, because that's where the language has a spirit that connects all of that.
Thank you.
Was it something inside of yourself that called you home back to your calling and the process of learning? How difficult was that for you to make that change?
You know what? The Creator I've come to know is called the Great Mystery, because the Creator works in mysterious ways, and the Creator is certainly swift. The Creator gave me a grandson in 2008, and my grandson was my catalyst for me to walk away from the world I had known, because my grandson was my anchor for the 6 years that I was out there. It was interesting because my life went from going so fast to go into a snail's pace, going back to my traditional territory. But my grandson was the anchor for me that whole time. And then at the same time, I got tired of waking up hungover, dope sick, broken friendships, broken relationships, that lifestyle that I was living, or I was surrounded by that lifestyle, and I just didn't want that for myself anymore. And I've always been given visions that through the dreamscape that the ancestors will talk to me, show me this is what you are to do, and this is what's coming, and this is what you are to do. And that because of the lineage I come from, for my family on my dad's side. And I was able to, and I know now why my grandfather, mother always tried to raise me and show me, because they seen what was to happen, what was coming for me. And to this day, my grandmother still visits me and tells me, Nagatita, be mindful of what's coming and what you are doing and who you're walking with and what it is you are doing and what it is you are telling the people, they said. Mm-hmm. So that's a part of it. So it wasn't really, I just knew that a part of it was, my life has always been like that, to be quite honest, is that I've always been given the gift of intuition, being able to seeing things that would be happening before they did. And that's a part of it. Being able to read other people's energies and part of that, right? So these gifts and abilities that all races of the human family have been given, spiritual gifts and abilities. But the world has forgotten that. And the elders had talked about, the ancestors talked about, there would come a time where all these spiritual and gifted people would be put in these white boxes and they would be locked away. And those were these mental institutions, asylums that the world has come to know. These are actually truly the gifted ones that can tap into those other realms, other dimensions of as gifted ones, the chosen ones. But that's how the world has forgotten all that, because the world started operating from a place of ego as opposed to spirit, and they had lost that disconnection. And this is why the world is where it is right now. And so for us who've been following on, I've been on this journey going on 31 years of understanding the sacredness and sanctity of our culture, our spiritual values, beliefs, of our language, and understanding the ceremonial component of it as well. And that it's just, we welcome this time, because we know Camino Paigaski, the world is turning over. The human being is waking up. And that it's still it's amusing now and again when people say to me, why nobody told me this was happening, this awakening was happening. While it only started when the eagle landed on Grandmother Moon, one of the prophecies that one of the elders from Sweetgrass in Saskatchewan shared with me in the early 90s. But the prophecies, he said that there would come a time when the eagle lands on Grandmother Moon, and it would be a time of great change for the world. And us as the red people would start rising and start going back to our language, our culture, our spirituality. And that was July of 1969 when Apollo 11 landed. And what did they say? They said the eagle has landed. And the prophecy right after that they talked about was that the grandmother spider would cast a web around Mother Earth that would bring unity and knowledge to the human family. And that was when the internet was first invented in 1991. And so the other prophecy we're living now is, and they said there would be a light that would fall from the sky. And that would be the precursor before that flash of light in the stars. Yeah.
Thanks, Gerald. Make sure I'm unmuted this time. So often our lives are filled with these painful lessons. Is there anything you look back on today where maybe you didn't appreciate the lesson then, but you can look back on it now and go, okay, I know why this happened why that happened for this reason?
I've had multiple lessons that my grandmother would say, start listening to what it is we're trying to tell you. And she would say to me that learn to listen with those ears. There's a reason why you were given only one mouth and two ears to listen with, she would say. But a lot of it was just, I don't know, it was a series of events from the abuse that I experienced. And I would have these Kodak moments that they would stick out. But it actually it was a series of events that led to me really having to make that choice, either end up 6 feet underground or 25 years behind bars. And that's when I realized that no, I didn't want to end up that way and be a statistic, right? So it was just a series of things that one of them was a street beat cop who was telling me when I was standing out on the drag in Edmonton and telling me as we were talking out there, he said, "What are you doing out here?" He said, "You don't belong out here. You speak so eloquently." At that time, he was just the enemy because I didn't know any better. And then this other time that happened later on, something happened where another human being's life was taken. And it's just really realizing that, wow, it's really realizing that how fleeting life can be and how we make the right choice. Just the one wrong choice in a split second can alter your life. And but now when I was out in the wilderness, I now realized that there was a reason why I never would really hit rock bottom growing up with it. I did, because there's always something there that would pick me up before I would hit rock bottom. Now I know those were the ancestors, those were my grandparents watching over me from behind the veil. And now I know that they were always there for me. And the Creator had always had my back. And that's what I've come to learn. When I would start some of my workshops, I would tell the people, I want to thank the Creator for all the emotional, the mental, the physical, the sexual abuse I experienced. People would say, why would you even say that? Because it gives me the authority to speak to you of what that trauma can do to you, but also what it can do for you when you heal from it. And that's how I understand it. The Creator will bring you to it. The Creator will bring you through it. And that the Creator will give the hardest battles to the strongest soldiers. And then that's a part of this whole, you can know, ghosts. I see, my grandmother would say, the Creator's always watching and the ancestors are always watching, watching over us. And but we have to learn to acknowledge that and learn to appreciate it and learn to give thanks for it. And so that's a part of where my life has been. And I don't know where it's going. I don't care to know where it's going because I know I'm on a bus, that the creator is driving a bus that I'm on. I'm just along for the ride. I just have to be mindful and I got to be mindful of my surroundings at every given time, even in the dreamscape. And because it's this global shift in consciousness is what the world's going through right now. And I had a lot of time to understand how to listen to the silence. The 6 years I was in the wilderness, because I was conditioning myself to be mindful 24/7, 365 days for 6 years. And that I didn't want to be this weekend warrior when it came to the healing. I knew for me, it was an everyday thing for the 6 years because I had over 30 years of trauma that I had to overcome. And the more I put into it, the more I got out of it. And then today, now I see where some people will be weekend warriors about it. And they will wonder why their life is not getting any better. Well, you have to learn to understand that when you go to Creator and Spirit and the ancestors for that guidance, that direction, and that healing, you have to be prepared to do your 50%. And then Creator and Spirit will do their 50%. And then so put the gispan at the masuin is what the elders would say. You have to earn what you seek, what you need for yourself. And so the Creator owes you nothing in this life. You owe it to yourself to become who the Creator created you to be, right? So now I know, for me, the journey I've walked, I've had to walk it. And it had to happen the way it did, because it made me real. It made me who I am today.
Thank you. I think that speaks volumes when you say that all these things that made up your journey gives you the authority to speak on them. I relate to that. Thank you. Gerald, what else do you do besides coming on like the coolest podcast in Canada?
The groundbreaking podcast.
To raise awareness, besides coming and talking to us, where else do you share your journey? I know you're working on a series.
I have a TV series I've been working on for the last 2 years. That it's something I wrote 20 years ago. And in 2019, an opportunity came for this TELUS Story Hive program. And I had some people who submitted a concept I had created. They put it forth. And 2 years later, I am in development with one of the major networks here in Canada who are wanting what I've created, the world that was created. But the world that I've created is not mine. It came through the ancestors. It came through the 6 years I was in the wilderness, and it's made me realize what four-directional storytelling really looks like. And there's a difference between John Wayne's Indian. I don't consider myself an Indian because I'm not from India. I am a four-directional human being. And the reason why I did what I did with Holly Weird for the 20 years I was doing that, and I finally walked away, was because I got tired. I didn't want to perpetrate any more stereotypes of who we are as four-directional people. And because when my son, and especially when my grandson, and now I have a granddaughter and be blessed with that as well, I wanted them to see who we are as four-directional human beings through respect, honor, and integrity of what they see on film and television. I didn't want to be perpetrating a drunk, an inmate, or an addict. And unfortunately, there are our own people who are perpetrating those stereotypes. And I told myself in 2009, I don't ever want to be that. And that because if I continue doing that, then I had no authority to get offended when somebody called me a drunken Indian or a welfare Indian, because if I'm perpetrating on that film and television, I have no authority to be offended because I was a part of the problem. But that was the thing, though, too. I never really, when it came to those stereotypes, I had already told my management then, said, I don't be submitting me for those kind of projects or those roles. And that if it's a chief, then I have no problem doing that. If it's a warrior of some sort, I have no problem doing that. When I was offered Pawnee Killer on AMC's Hell on Wheels, Pawnee Killer was a real leader back in the day. And he's seen where our people were going to go when the European came. And that's why I embraced that role of Pawnee Killer, because I knew Creator was up to something yet again. And now with the TV series that I've been working on producing, and that is to bring the authentic version of who we are as four directional people in the 21st century, using with cultural and spiritual elements incorporated, woven into the storyline.
Hey, listeners, this is your host, Kelly Smith. If you're interested in joining an advisory committee that provides constructive criticism, feedback, and ideas for the content of Turtle Island Voices, we'd love to hear from you. Visit us at turtleislandvoices.ca/advise to learn more.
So my son and my grandchildren, when they see really where we come from prior to European contact, that it's still relevant in this day and age. But yeah, when I know part of what I'm to do now, since I left in 2016 from that sabbatical, is there are things that I've already said, and that you will see when you Google my name on Grandfather Google, that I say what needs to be said, because I'm not here to, like my dad said, he said, if you want to be a leader, you're not there to make friends. You're there to tell the people what they need to hear. Yeah.
Thank you. I thought it was Dr. Google, actually.
Well, her people have become so colonial in their way that that's their grandfather Google. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I kind of like grandfather Google better, or even grandmother Google. Clearly, leadership qualities that you show yourself is you walk the walk. That is probably the most transparent way to be a leader. What other qualities do you think a leader should have in raising awareness for four-directional people? And what does that look like?
One of the things that the ancestors have spoken of in ceremony, and the elders talk about it all the time, is that we as a human being, as a human family, need to understand natural law exists for a reason. And as a leader, it doesn't matter what color, you can be blue, pink, yellow as a human being, but you have to be very mindful of the words that you speak and the actions that you do. Because as a leader, it's not going to be you that'll pay for those mistakes that you make if you do it not from an authentic place. It's going to be the people that you lead that'll pay the consequences, that where natural law will visit them. And that the old people say it. Creator is always listening. Spirit never sleeps. And as a leader, you have to be very mindful. The choices you make and the decisions that you do and the words that you speak, because natural law does not know color, creed, religion, or faith. And the universe is the eyes and ears. And if you're there truly to speak on behalf of the people, you have to listen to what the people are telling you. It's not about you. It's about the children, and it's about our children's children. And the world has forgotten the true power of what natural law is. And this is why the world, unfortunately, is spiraling the way it is. The answer that said, the world has forgotten their higher power. When they said they have forgotten about the ancestors as well. And so as a leader, and I've said this, I was asked to do and I did the interview at Washington, D.C. They asked me towards the end of the interview, they said, what would you want to tell the world leaders today, what it is to be a leader? And I said, you can lie to yourself, to your fellow human being. You can't lie to the Creator. The Creator knows your true intentions behind your intentions. The Creator knows your reaction before your action in life. And to be mindful, because the words and the actions will have consequence. Because the Creator loved us enough to grant us free will. We are free to make choices, but we're not free from the consequences. You do good things will come. You do bad things will come. And that's just Creator's law. is really what it is, right? So yeah, for the leaders, they need to be mindful because that's why, unfortunately, you see the elders that said this is why so many people are leaving the planet right now. This is why there's so much chaos, confusion, and destruction throughout the land, because the people have forgotten who is really in charge here. And that's Mother Earth and Father Sun, Peace, and Grandmother Night Sun. These four elements, this land that we live, we are the land. There was a Welsh brother who said that to me. He said, Gerald, we are the land. The air that we breathe is the wind on Mother Earth. The water that covers Mother Earth is the same water that we are comprised of. The DNA from those trees is the same DNA in our bones. And that spark that's from Father's Son is the same spark in our hearts. So we are the land. And that was a part of it, right? So it's just people need to understand you can't hide. When the creator is the creator for a reason. But now the people are going to start realizing that.
Thank you. What do you see as an uphill battle? And let's say let me frame it into reconciliation, for example. What might be an uphill battle that we're facing?
One of the battles that I've been facing with other spiritual people and other knowledge keepers, and the knowledge keepers that I sit with and the elders that I sit with from the eighth fire. One of the things that, yes, it's beautiful to see our people going back to the language, going back to the culture, going back to understanding these spiritual values and beliefs. But there's a lot of people who are jumping ahead for either recognition or to gain respect or to get for monetary value. And they don't have the understanding. They haven't earned that knowledge that they're trying to share with the people. These land-based teachings that we've been. In order for you to understand what those teachings mean, you have to be willing to sacrifice to go and understand what those creators' law, natural law, laws of nature, spiritual law really mean. Because people today, when I was going to go after my degree in Native Studies and as your elders will tell you who you are, the land will tell you who you are. And as a part of it is what they had said. So that's the whole battle that we are facing right now, is the wanting to offer some knowledge, some understanding of really what that looks like. But they haven't done the work, and they haven't done the healing themselves. They haven't done the work on themselves to really understand what healing looks like, what healing feels like. And when I talk about Grandfather Google, it has its role in life like everything else. But if you really want to understand what those teachings mean, those teachings, the spirit behind those teachings, you have to be willing to sacrifice your time and make the effort to go sit with the elders, to sit with the knowledge keepers, to sit with the land, to understand what it is that really means and the true power of our languages that we've been given. Because that's where Imatsi big spoon, that language has spirit, right? So that's a part of it. And we can't talk about truth and reconciliation because I've learned you can't reconcile until you accept the truth for really what it is. KUU-US is understanding that what residential schools, what colonization has done to our people. We have to learn to heal from that first before we can accept and embrace the truth. And that you can't reconcile something if you don't understand the truth and the origin and where it's taken and where you are in your own life, right? Because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And that's one thing that you can't talk truth and reconciliation until we, as four directional people through Turtle Island and Mother Earth, come to understand that there's a reason why we were given and blessed with languages, culture, and spiritual values and beliefs. But understand where that traditional and spiritual law exists for a reason, as does natural law. You can never overstep traditional and spiritual law. today, unfortunately, I see a lot of our people, some of our people putting their spirit names on the internet, on these platforms. That name is sacred for a reason. And there's a reason why these songs are never to be put out there, because it has knowledge. Not all songs, but there are spiritual songs that have spiritual energy that need to be respected and adhered to. Because if you break these laws, it's the people that are going to pay for breaking those laws. It's called natural law. And then our people, I seen on one of the platforms of TikTok, some young man from the north who was sharing some sacred knowledge about a ceremony, and not knowing that obviously whoever was teaching him didn't give him the proper teachings. And there's a reason why there's so much chaos in this world, because people are creating this chaos. And even in our communities, people are creating this chaos because people are breaking traditional spiritual laws when it comes to ceremony, when it comes to songs, when it comes to this knowledge. And that's the only way people have to go what those laws really truly mean. And because if we don't take the time, then we're not going to leave anything behind for our children and their children.
Gerald, do you think their lack of guidance, or just with the people that are, say, sharing their spiritual names online and singing spiritual songs where it shouldn't be heard by 50 million people and that kind of thing, do you think they're doing it just out of a lack of guidance of their own knowledge? Or do you think it's more personally motivated, or maybe a little bit of both?
People had said it when I went and shot this TV series that's coming out this year in Kamloops, actually, for a TV series that's coming on. And I was told when I was there that they says, you can't fault the people for what they don't know that they don't know. Meaning that because today the elders of yesterday talked about culture, talked about spirituality, talked about everything that comes and the connection to our land and really what that really means. Today's elders talk about the abuse they experienced at residential school, the colonization, and so that's a part of it. It's because our people, they don't know that they don't know what they're doing is wrong. So that's a part of why I do what I do now. The first question you asked me, why did you choose to do it? I didn't choose to do it. I was told to do it. And that's a part of it. And that's where I'm able to understand and accept that when people do that, because they don't know what they don't know. But the only way we can shapeshift that and change that is and I honor you for doing this podcast, because hopefully the people will understand that, no, there's things are, the world is shifting, the world is changing. And that when the ones that come and sit in ceremony, whenever they're given a name or they're given something from spirit world, I make sure that they understand what the protocols have come and the laws that come with that medicine, those songs, those names, and that, because if I don't do that, then I'm part of the problem. And then that's why the 6 years I was one of Creator's most obedient soldiers, and that's a part of it, because that's why I needed to take the time, the 6 years, to really look and listen to what I had been taught prior to that. And I had to reconnect to Creator, to the ancestors, to the elders, through the land, through the ceremonies, through the land-based teachings. And then I wasn't prepared to do it, find that connection through Grandfather Google or listening to what our people call these self-professed elders, knowledge keepers that are out there, and that they had said, don't go to just any pipe, to just any ceremony. Watch how that person moves in life. Then you'll know how they understand those laws that come with those ceremonies, with those pipes. And if you ever hear anybody saying openly to the people, I'm a pipe carrier, then you know, they don't understand that pipe. And that because a pipe carrier never has to say that, the people will know. And that's a part of it. And these are the original teachings our people have. When the residential schools of colonization came, our people were stripped of these teachings. And it's up to us to be able to reintroduce that. And we can't do that. And if we're too busy struggling in our own journeys and that's why I had to go do the work on myself to heal from my trauma. Because I can't tell the people how to heal, and I didn't even do it for myself. And that was a part of it, right?
Thank you. I just want to tell you, I'm really enjoying this podcast. I'm learning so much. It means a lot to me. So thank you. So what do you say to the four-directional person that isn't actually interested in learning any of this? Or do you say anything?
There's nothing I can say. All I can say is just offer prayer. And that because I come to understand one of the Creator's absolute laws, the Creator loved us enough to grant us free will. We are free to make choices, but we're not free from the consequences. And that all I can do is pray for those human beings who don't understand who their higher power is, who don't understand what spirit is. And that because my grandmother had said, that's the level of understanding they're at. And there's nothing you can do to change that. Just like you can't force anybody to love you, you can't force anybody to heal. And that all we can do is live and lead by example to the best of our abilities, but always walk with humility, always walk with love, always walk with that for that, because you can't say Creator and then react in anger, react in resentment, react in hate. And that because to know Creator is to know love. And when you know Creator and love, then you love yourself, right? So even these 7 sacred laws that the Creator gave are the human being. There are these man-made Western 7 sacred teachings that the people are being taught, and those are not the authentic 7 sacred laws the Creator gave the human being. But again, that's a part of it. Creator said, but don't fault them for that because they just don't know what they don't know. They had said. So that was towards the end of my 6 years. I was told to go sit for 7 days and 7 nights out on the land, no food, no water. And that when I was told to do that in ceremony, I didn't question it, because I was prepared to give my life for my son, my grandson, and my fellow human being. When they said to me, you will go sit for 7 days and 7 nights. If we meet that, they said, we want to give you something. So I did that 7 days and 7 nights. And the beautiful thing about faith is wanting to believe. Knowing is knowing Creator exists. At this time, I already knew Creator exists. The grandfathers exist, the grandmother's spirit exists, so I didn't question it. And it was only until the 7 days when I was given things to sit with, to protect me, to sit me, to guide me the whole time. It was only when I took those apart is the hunger and the thirst then came. But the food and the water was readily available. But then that's when they gave me the 7 sacred laws that were to govern the human being, all human being, with these 7 sacred laws of love, humility, honesty, courage, respect, wisdom, and truth. But these came from the ancestors. So now when people want to know these teachings, I ask them, you'll have to come and sit and follow protocol to share with you what I was told to share with the people. And that we might see they have spirit. And that's why when we talk, when the interviews I do, I always light my smudge, because this is not me. This is what I'm speaking on behalf of the Creator that I know. I'm speaking on behalf of the ancestors that I've come to know and the elders, and I need to honor the spirit of that.
Thank you. That's really humbling for me personally. So what does cultural and historical awareness look like in 5 years? Are we going the right direction? Are we just being led down a rabbit hole?
Well, this pandemic, this is a part of it that's going on, including the chaos, the confusion, the mayhem and destruction that's happening throughout the land. The elders that said, the answer said the world is being woken up to this time at this time. And we were told by the answers, they said there's light coming for humanity. They had said, before that light comes, there will be this chaos, this confusion, this mayhem, this destruction that will have to happen, because it's in that time that the world will fall to its knees. And when it falls to its knees, they will understand two things: how they have forgotten the Creator, and how they have forgotten how pitiful we have become as a human family when we operate strictly from ego and not from the heart, from spirit. So for me, I see what we were told, and that just keep doing what you have to do to bring that knowledge, that understanding, that light to the world, and don't worry about those who are playing with life, who are playing with this knowledge, who are playing with this sacred knowledge. We'll take care of that. Ahamimo is what they would say. Just keep doing what you have to do. He says, take care of each other, respect each other, right? So in the next 5 years that I see, when that flash of light comes in the stars that they said, it's going to be a beautiful time for us. Like I said, as spiritual people, we love this time. It's challenging and interesting for a reason, because it's showing the world something. Everything happens for a reason, and it will serve a purpose. But it's up to you to understand what that is. And if you're willing to listen to the silence, pay attention to what's going on, then you'll see the light in this darkness that the world is living. But today the world is too busy living that 1260 frequency, which is artificial time. And that's 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 12 months to a year. That's a clock in a calendar you'll never catch up to. For those of us, I was told, share with the people. They have to understand the 1328 frequency, and that's real time. There is only one species that lives that line, and that's that time, and that's the animal kingdom. The 1328 is there's a full moon every 28 days, 13 times in the year. That's real time. That's Creator's time. That's the original time, and so that's a part of it, is understanding that. So these interviews that I've been doing is sharing that with the world, and be amazed on how many people, wow, I never really thought about it that way. Sometimes, like I did before 2009, I was too busy chasing my ego and material and recognition and all that before, because I wasn't in the place of balance at that time. And that's why I chose to do this work for myself, because I know I have a grandson and I need to do that for him. And now my little granddaughter at the same time. So when my son was born, and I was in my early 20s when my son was born, that's when the elders said, it's not about you no more. As soon as you're given a child, you're loaned a child, it's not about you. It's about that child now.
Thank you. What is something everyone is thinking, but nobody is saying about truth and reconciliation?
The people have to really understand, and they're beginning to understand that the residential schools were real, that colonization is real, and then racism and discrimination is alive and well in this day and age. And that then you can't say you walk and embrace truth and reconciliation when there is still water advisory happening in Canada, where there is still suicide epidemics happening in Moccasin country, where there is still systematic racism and discrimination happening in the world. Don't talk about truth and reconciliation unless they are willing to be the change that you want. And I know when the 215 happened, and that I had my Western brothers and sisters reaching out to me, ashamed, reaching out to me saying, I am so ashamed of what happened, and my people were a part of it. What can I do to change that? And they said, you've done it already. you, by reaching out and wanting to understand really what needs to happen, you've done it already. I ask you to share it with your fellow Western brothers and sisters to understand that it's not something you get over when you've been stripped of your values, your beliefs for 500 years and not being allowed to practice your ceremonies, not being allowed to speak your language, not being allowed to be proud of who you are as a four-directional human being. And this is the other thing that the elders had said about the pandemic, of how where now the people, the non-Indigenous people, are seeing what it is we've gone through as four-directional people, how the government is telling them how to live, how they are relying on the government to exist, to survive, and how they feel where their power has been taken, their freedom has been taken. And that's what the elders, they said. Now they understand really what it is to be four-directional in the 21st century. And that because they're living it to understand it. And that's the power of this time we're at right now. And if the people are going to talk truth and reconciliation, then understand love, kindness, and compassion. Those are not just words. That's a way of life. And keep in mind that you can say one thing, but the Creator is always listening. The universe is lying, and we all have children, and you would never want this for your own child. So I know now the world is being shown what happens when you forget yourself, because you forget your children, especially when you forget the Creator.
Thank you. We're going to start wrapping up here. Sandra, do you want to hop in here? Or even finish up with the last question? Yeah, okay.
Sure. I just really wanted to thank you, Gerald. My first language was Cree. Mm-hmm. And of course, when I started school, that was out the door. And I have this one cousin, when he comes to visit, that's all he talks is Cree. And it's coming back. Mm-hmm. So I thank you for that. It's powerful stuff when you start rediscovering who you are. And I thank you.
Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed this educational session. So for our listeners, is there anything else you'd like to share before we close off?
Mm-hmm. Just to I ask the listeners to learn to work together in unity, and to learn to love each other, and to learn to heal. Because until that happens, nothing's going to change for our children and their children's children. And when we as Woodland Cree say "Natawiun," which is healing, you break that down. It says "Natakiwihun," means go get your name. And that's the name that the ancestors have given us as our ancestral names, our spirit names. And that's a part of when you break that word down, it's those little, just like when you talk about fire as Woodland Cree, Iskutio, we call it fire. Iskutio is Isku is D, is heart. So a woman's heart. That's why the fire is so sacred. Home fires, because the woman is the most powerful and the most sacred being in this world. But to go back to her teachings to understand what the power of that is, because that's the only way the life world will correct itself. So for those listening in, I ask you to walk with respect and honor for who you are, and learn to walk together in love, light, and unity, so we can come together in healing for our children and their children's children.
Thank you. I don't even know how to end this podcast, to be honest with you. I want to keep talking forever and pulling information out of you, but I guess that things we can't do everything we want. Thank you. This has been really educational, and I appreciate it. And it's also very memorable. So we'll say goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay.
See you.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Turtle Island Voices. For those of you who may be triggered by the information shared, please call the toll-free First Nations and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-33 or the Metis Crisis Line at 1-833-638-4722. You can find us at turtleislandvoices.ca, where our show notes provide more information from each episode. Please follow us on social media.